My phone slipped from my trembling fingers like a burning snake, clattering onto the cold marble floor with a sound that echoed through the entire house. Camila's words still hung in the frigid air of the living room, sharp as shards of glass. "Mom, we're selling the house, and you'll have to leave. Bye." The dull thud of the phone hitting the floor was like a hammer beating against my chest, each blow reverberating through my bones to my heart, which pounded in a desperate race. This house, our house, the house where I grew up, where I learned to walk by holding on to the antique furniture, where Camila took her first steps on the Persian rug in the living room, where we kept family secrets in every drawer, in every dark corner, in every yellowed photograph hanging on the walls. This house was more than four walls and a roof. It was the repository of our history, the cradle of our memories, the sanctuary where 3 generations of women left their invisible marks. And she didn't know. My daughter had no idea what she was about to destroy. I stood there, paralyzed in the hallway, watching the shadows dance on the walls in the dim light from the street. The autumn wind beat against the windows with an almost human insistence, as if the house itself were whispering secrets I didn't yet understand. Each floorboard creaked under my bare feet, as if weeping a premature farewell. 25 years earlier, I had arrived at this same house as a young bride, carrying only a worn suitcase and a heart full of dreams. Mark, my then husband, had inherited the property from his grandmother, a mysterious woman everyone in town knew only as Grandma Hope. She had built this house brick by brick with her own hands after arriving in town with nothing but a small child in her arms and an unwavering determination in her eyes. In the early years of our marriage, I felt like an intruder in those imposing rooms. The antique furniture seemed to watch me suspiciously. The lace curtains moved without a breeze, and I swore I heard whispers coming from the basement during the nights. Mark laughed at my concerns, saying I had too much imagination. But the women in the neighborhood confirmed my suspicions with knowing glances and enigmatic half-smiles. It was during Camila's pregnancy that everything changed. The house began to accept me as if it recognized the life growing inside me. The doors stopped creaking, the rooms warmed even on the coldest days, and I began to find small gifts hidden in drawers I swore were empty. An antique brooch, a photo of Grandma Hope smiling, a notebook with handwritten recipes in a script that seemed familiar, although I had never seen it before. Camila was born on a spring morning when the sun streamed through the window of the master bedroom like a golden blessing. The midwife, an elderly black woman with white hair and wise eyes, held my daughter in her arms and whispered something that sent a chill down my spine. "This girl has the gift of the house. She will be the next guardian." At the time, I dismissed it as an old woman's tale, small-town superstition. How wrong I was. The years passed in a routine of diapers, bottles, first steps, and first words. Camila grew up playing with dolls in the living room, running through the hallways, hiding in the attic during summer afternoons. She knew every corner of the house better than any child should, talked to imaginary friends who seemed to respond to her conversations, and drew strange symbols on the walls of her room that I could never completely erase. When Camila turned 7, Mark decided he couldn't stand the house's mysteries anymore. He had grown up there, but he had never truly adapted. He said he felt watched, that the house had a life of its own, that he couldn't sleep properly knowing that its walls held secrets he would never understand. The separation was painful, but not unexpected. He left one Tuesday morning, taking only 2 suitcases and an expression of relief that hurt me more than any cruel word. I was left alone with Camila, trying to be both father and mother, working double shifts to keep the house and raise my daughter. It was years of sacrifice, of late nights studying after she went to sleep, of saving every penny so she could have a better education than mine. I sold baked goods in the town square, sewed clothes for the neighbors, and gave private Portuguese lessons to children in the area. All so Camila would never want for anything, so she could dream beyond the limits of our small town. And the house protected us. I know it sounds crazy, but I felt its maternal presence enveloping me during the most difficult times. When the electricity bill was too high, I suddenly found an envelope with money under the door. I never found out who left it. When Camila got sick, she recovered miraculously fast. When thieves tried to break into the property, they fled in panic, claiming to have seen ghosts that chased them away. During her adolescence, Camila began to distance herself from the house and from me. She said our life was backward, that she wanted to live in the capital city, that she felt suffocated by family traditions. She got a boyfriend in college, a city boy who looked at our house with barely concealed disdain. Rodrigo was everything I didn't want for my daughter, ruthlessly ambitious, materialistic, incapable of seeing the beauty in simple things. But Camila was in love, and love blinds even the smartest women. She married him right after graduation in a small, cold ceremony held in a rented hall in town. Rodrigo didn't want the party at our house, claiming it was old-fashioned and unsophisticated for his guests. Camila agreed, and I swallowed my pride so as not to ruin her day. Now, sitting on the cold floor of the hallway, I understood that that call hadn't been just about selling a property. It was about severing ties, about abandoning a legacy that went far beyond monetary value. It was about betraying everything I had sacrificed to preserve. I got up with shaky legs and walked to the kitchen. I needed tea, something warm to heat the chill that had settled in my bones. While waiting for the water to boil, my eyes scanned the familiar details. The solid wood table where Camila used to do her homework, the hand-painted cabinet by Grandma Hope, the window overlooking the garden where I used to hang laundry while watching my daughter play. That's when I noticed something strange. The cellar door, which had always been ajar, was now locked with a thick chain and a rusty padlock. That was new. I knew every inch of that house, every door, every lock, every secret. Where had that chain come from? I descended the creaking stairs with a racing heart. The key I always kept around my neck, an heirloom from Grandma Hope, didn't open the padlock. On the cellar wall, there was a family portrait I had never seen before. Grandma Hope, with an enigmatic expression, stared at me with eyes that seemed alive, that seemed to know exactly what I was thinking. And there, at that moment, a spark of curiosity and fear ignited in my chest. The next morning, I drove to the apartment where Camila lived with Rodrigo. It was a modern building, all glass and concrete, which violently contrasted with the warm architecture of our house. Camila greeted me with a forced smile, offering coffee in a fine porcelain cup that probably cost more than I earned in a week. "Mom, you need to understand," she began, avoiding my gaze. "The house is too big for you, too expensive to maintain. With the money from the sale, you can buy an apartment nearby, modern, without so many problems." "What problems?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Those leaks, the old wiring, the garden that's a lot of work. And besides, Rodrigo got an excellent offer. It's a unique opportunity." When I mentioned the locked cellar door, Camila froze. Her cup stopped in midair, halfway to her lips. "What door, Mom? I've never seen any door in the cellar." My stomach churned. How was it possible she had never noticed? The cellar was in the original house plans. She had played there as a child. I perfectly remembered cleaning mud off her shoes after she explored that room. Camila, you used to play there when you were little. Remember your dolls that you hid behind the boxes? She looked at me as if I had lost my mind. Mom, I never went down to the cellar. I've always been afraid of dark places. At that moment, I realized that something much deeper was happening. It wasn't just a matter of selling a property. It was as if my daughter had lost the memory of a fundamental part of her childhood, and that terrified me. I went back home with more questions than answers. I went up to the attic, a place I had avoided for years because of the dust and cobwebs, but something was pulling me there, an intuition I couldn't ignore. In the darkest corner, under a pile of old sheets, I found a leather chest that I didn't remember ever seeing before. Inside the chest, there was a leather-bound notebook written in a shaky handwriting that I immediately recognized. It was Grandma Hope's handwriting. The yellowed pages were filled with notes about the house's foundations, sketches of a secret chamber, records of an essence that had been incorporated into the cement of the foundations. The words were disconcerting, almost delirious. She spoke of a pulsating heart that kept the house standing, of a silent pact between stone and blood. There were drawings of strange symbols, the same ones Camila used to scribble on the walls as a child, and a phrase that chilled me to the bone. The house chooses its guardians. When one leaves, another must take her place. If you've come this far in this story, imagine discovering that your own home holds secrets that could change everything. If you want to continue following exciting stories like this one, which reveal family mysteries and profound transformations, consider subscribing to receive more narratives that touch the heart and awaken the soul. Relating the dates in the notebook to my own memories, I realized that Grandma Hope had written those words the same week she mysteriously disappeared. Her death was never fully explained. The police filed the case as an accident, but the neighbors always whispered theories about a supernatural end. What if Camila and Rodrigo, unknowingly, were about to unleash something that shouldn't be disturbed? What if the house really pulsed with a life of its own, with a purpose beyond our comprehension? Desperate, I called Dona Julia, the oldest neighbor on the street. She had been a friend of Grandma Hope and always treated our house with a respect bordering on reverence. With a trembling voice, I told her about the chest, the notebook, the padlock that had appeared out of nowhere. "My dear," she whispered on the phone, "your mother-in-law told me about this before she passed. She said the house had been built on sacred ground, that she had made a deal to protect her family, but the price was eternal loyalty. Grandma Julia lent me a dark, heavy wrought iron key, passed down from mother to daughter in her family for generations. They say this key unlocks not just doors, but hearts. Use it wisely." That night, as the city slept and only the wind sang in the trees, I descended to the cellar again. My hand trembled as I inserted the ancient key into the rusty lock. With a dry click, the chain released, and the door groaned a sigh of dried wood. The air inside smelled of upturned earth and old memories. In the dim light of my flashlight, I saw symbols etched into the stone walls, a complex circular mandala, at the center of which rested a concrete pedestal, and on the pedestal, a dark-bound book with metallic edges bearing our family name engraved in gold. I opened the book reverently and discovered it wasn't just a book. It was a record. Page after page documented the history of the women who'd lived in this house, their sacrifices, their pains, their triumphs. And on the last written page, I recognized Grandma Hope's handwriting. The house is not merely a place to live. It is a sanctuary to protect what is sacred. When a guardian fails in her mission, the house finds a way to awaken the next. My daughter will be tested. May she be strong enough to understand. I understood everything at that moment. The house wasn't just our dwelling. It was a living entity, a protector of our lineage. And Camila, without knowing it, was being tested. Her forgetfulness wasn't natural. It was the house's way of protecting its secrets until she was ready to assume them. The next day, Camila showed up at my door with Rodrigo. He carried sales papers, contracts already prepared, the look of someone who considered the deal practically closed. But when they entered the house, something changed. Camila stopped in the middle of the room, her eyes wide, as if seeing the place for the first time. Her fingers traced the antique furniture with a familiarity she had denied existed. Rodrigo, in turn, became visibly uncomfortable, restless, as if something unseen was watching him. "Mom," Camila whispered, I remember playing here as a child. How could I forget?" I led her to the cellar, now unlocked. When she saw the symbols on the walls, her eyes filled with tears. "I used to draw this when I was little. I didn't know why, but something compelled me to draw it." Rodrigo tried to intervene, claiming it was all folklore and superstition, that they had financial commitments to fulfill. But Camila wasn't listening anymore. She was reading the book on the pedestal, discovering the history of her own family, finally understanding her place in that lineage of warrior women. "Did you know?" she asked me, her eyes shining in a way I hadn't seen in years. "I suspected," I replied, "but the house needed you to discover it for yourself. It needed you to consciously choose to be the next guardian." Rodrigo exploded in fury, claiming it was mass hysteria, that they had signed contracts, that they couldn't back out of the deal. But when he tried to leave the cellar, something extraordinary happened. The door slammed shut by itself, and for a few moments he was trapped in the dark with us. "The house doesn't like threats," I explained calmly. "It protects those who respect it and expels those who try to harm it." When the door finally opened, Rodrigo ran out, yelling something about crazy women and medieval superstitions. Camila didn't follow him. She stayed there, in the cellar, reading every page of the sacred book, discovering her true identity. Hours later, as the sun began to set, we went up to the kitchen. Camila made tea, the same tea I used to make for her as a child, a recipe that was written in Grandma Hope's notebook. We sat at the solid wood table, and for the first time in years, I felt that my daughter had truly come home. "Mom," she said, holding my hand, "I'm sorry for pushing you away. I didn't understand. I didn't remember what this house truly means." "The house made you forget to protect its secrets," I explained. "It knew you weren't ready for the responsibility yet. But now you've grown, matured, and it can trust you again." Camila smiled, and in that smile, I saw the girl who used to play in the hallways, who talked to invisible friends, who drew mystical symbols on the walls. But I also saw the strong woman she had become, capable of making difficult decisions and bearing the weight of an ancestral legacy. "And Rodrigo?" I asked. "Rodrigo never truly loved me," she replied with a mature sadness. "He loved the idea of possessing me, of controlling me, but I'm not an object to be possessed. I'm a guardian, a protector, a woman with purpose." That night, Camila called Rodrigo and annulled the marriage. She canceled all the sales contracts, ignored his legal threats, and made a decision that filled me with pride. She moved back into our house. In the months that followed, I witnessed an extraordinary transformation in my daughter. She quit her job in the capital and opened a small craft workshop in town, creating pieces inspired by the house's symbols. Her works were successful not only for their beauty, but for the energy they emanated. People said they felt protected when wearing them. Camila also started receiving other women in our house, women who had lost their way, who needed guidance, who sought a greater purpose. Our living room transformed into a support group where stories were shared, wounds were healed, and lives were rebuilt. "The house has always been a sanctuary," she explained to me one Sunday afternoon as we prepared lunch for the visitors. "Not just for our family, but for all the women who need protection and healing." So I understood then that the true secret of the house wasn't supernatural. It was human. It was about the strength of women supporting each other, the power of female solidarity, the importance of preserving traditions that honor our ancestry. Today, watching Camila working in her studio, teaching other women to create beauty with their own hands, I feel a deep gratitude for having resisted the temptation to sell our house. It's not just a property, it's a legacy, a symbol of resilience, a testament that some things are more valuable than money. Rodrigo tried to come back a few times, claiming he had reflected on his actions. But Camila had changed. She wasn't the insecure young woman who let herself be manipulated by empty promises anymore. She was a woman who knew her worth, who understood her purpose, who had found her inner strength. "Mom," she told me one morning as we watered the garden together, "thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for protecting our house until I was ready to take on my responsibility." I smiled, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face and the fertile earth between my fingers. Daughter, a mother never gives up. A mother just waits, patiently and lovingly, for her daughter to discover who she truly is. The house continues to protect us, to nourish us, to teach us. Its walls hold not only our secrets, but our wisdom. Each antique piece of furniture tells a story. Each yellowed photograph preserves a memory. Each room echoes with the laughter of generations of women who found refuge here. Today, I understand that we aren't owners of this house. We are its temporary guardians. Our mission is to preserve it, honor it, and prepare it for the next generation. When my time comes to leave, I know Camila will be ready to fully assume that responsibility. And maybe, one day, she'll have a daughter who will also need to be tested, who will also need to discover her true identity. The house will know how to awaken in her the guardian that exists within every woman of our lineage. Because some inheritances can't be sold, can't be negotiated, can't be abandoned. They must be lived, protected, and passed on with love and wisdom. And that's the most precious lesson I've learned. The true value of life isn't in what we possess, but in what we are able to preserve for future generations. Our house isn't just made of brick and wood. It's made of love, memory, and purpose. And as long as there are women in our family willing to honor this heritage, it will stand solid and eternal as the love that built it.